Hey guys, it's Gunnar. Today I want to talk a little bit about buck home ranges. Now, this has always been a really interesting topic for me because I'm always looking to get that edge on the specific deer I'm targeting and trying to figure out how he's moving. And it's super important to pay attention to all the different properties and areas that he's spending time so you can have a larger percentage in harvesting him next fall. So number one that I want to touch on is small acreage patterning is tough. The largest property that I personally hunt is 90 acres. Now, the NDA did a study on collared bucks and they found the average home range of a buck is anywhere from 300 to 650 acres. Now, this was on highly managed property, great habitat. It was burned every couple of years. It was select cut every few years. 300 acres of food plots. These deer had everything they needed. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that your property is probably not to this level that they were managing this one. So let's remember that. The better the property, the smaller the movement is going to be in most scenarios. So, yeah, number one, it's tough. These deer are moving a long ways every single day and every single week throughout the year. And it's not easy to lock in on a pattern. Basically, we're not even patterning deer at that point. We're just hunting repeat tendencies. What they tend to do when they decide to come through this funnel or come through this area in their home range. That's what we're looking to capitalize on. We're not patterning deer. We're not trying to put a specific date to an activity on these deer because they're wild animals. You're not going to do that unless you have large parcels with everything a deer needs. Then you can start to pattern deer at a higher success rate versus a small parcel that deer are frequenting once in a while. Number two is going to be, how can we pattern these deer? Well, number two here is neighbors. We need to be in communication with our neighbors. You have to have some form of relationship with the surrounding properties in your area. If you want to manage deer for the better, you can't do it alone. If you don't have 300 to 650 acres, you're not going to be able to do this alone. These deer are going to shift onto neighboring properties, and if you don't have a good relationship with them, or at least a communicative relationship with them, how do you expect to grow bigger deer or improve the habitat, improve the quality of the bucks that you're seeing without a relationship with them? You're not. If you want to see only 4.5 years and up get killed, but your neighbors feel comfortable shooting 2.5-year-old and up, that's going to be a conflict. Guys, it's Gunnar. Look, if you like the video, like what you're seeing, but you still need more help, shoot me a message. I'll help you with whatever you need. I got your back for life. Now let's get back to the video. They're going to be negating any work you're doing on your property just by doing what they deem necessary on theirs. So that's something you need to discuss and start to build on. Build these relationships, make your thoughts and ideas known, and you never know what you can accomplish as a team versus individually. Number three is going to be habitat awareness. Now, within this buck's 650 acre home range, there's going to be a variety of different habitat features within that, right? So one of the main things that I like to do to pay attention and understand where a particular buck might be during a specific time of the year is I'm looking at these habitat features. So a particular buck we killed this year, Junior, I'm going to kind of go into that story a little bit. My buddy hunts not very far away. He had that deer for 3 years. He had him during the early seasons in the summer and into early October, but that was it. He would disappear. Now, where do you think that deer would be frequenting during those early season timeframes? Well, early October, he'd probably be frequenting white oaks, right? Perfect timing for that. The October lull, these deer are shifting to the white oaks. They're not coming out to feed on the ag fields. Perfect scenario there. He's got cover in his bedding area. He's feeding on white oaks. He doesn't need to leave. That's the perfect area for him to be at. So if you have an area that's got heavy white oaks and it's a good year for him, I think he's probably going to be in there or around there during the early season. So that's something to remember. Keep that in the back of your head. Now, where would he be during the summer and the real early of the season here? Well, he's probably going to be on alfalfa, right? Green soybeans, alfalfa, high protein, high stem count alfalfa, of course. So that's another thing we look for. Now, when I found those things, I start to ask myself, okay, well, that's exactly where that deer's at. Perfect. That answers your question. These deer are going to be in specific areas at a specific time for a reason. And it's easy to find that out when you start analyzing the habitat features creating that movement. So let's go to the third one down here, this third habitat feature. Now, I used food sources. This can all be relative with cover and pressure as well. Corn. When are deer going to feed on corn? Well, probably when there's a lot of snow on the ground and they can't get to any acorns, no native browse, and the hay is hard to dig up. They're probably going to feed on the corn when there's a lot of snow, right? In the late season. So these are all things you can capitalize on if you pay attention to what habitat features are within this buck's home range and the time of the year and why he would be there at a specific time of the year. If you can figure out all these questions, you can pinpoint exactly where you need to be, and this 650 acre home range, if you have access to it, shrinks way down and it turns into 20 acres, 50 acres, 60 acres here and there depending on the time of the year you're in. Now, like I said, it all changes. This is all relative to cover. This is super heavy regen cover, maybe a lot of aspen popple, a lot of native browse. This is still your oaks, and maybe this is a cedar thicket. Now, when a big snowstorm comes, where do you think a lot or majority of the deer are going to congregate to? Let's say all of these are 60 acre chunks of timber. Where do you think they're going to congregate to if you have a big, heavy snowstorm with a lot of wind? Well, I'm thinking they're going to go to the cedars and the thermal cover to get out of the nasty weather. Now, if it's real sunny out and it's 30 degrees, it's pretty mild, maybe there's a little bit of snow, they're probably going to be in this native regen, this nice cover. It's not too bad out. They can feed on the native regen in there. They feel secure. Now, a big hardwood oaks, it's probably something they're not going to spend a lot of time in during the winter. That's more of a summer type area. That's going to be a cool, real breezy during the summer when it's hot. Keep those things in mind. Now, you can do this with cover too. If this is a high pressure property over here, here's the line fence. There's no pressure here. This changes everything, how that buck moves. Daylight versus nighttime movement. These are all things you need to be paying attention to within this buck's home range. And these are all things that you can understand and get answers to just by doing some scouting and analyzing some of these habitat features. So we talked about habitat awareness. We talked about the times of the year. So now number 5 is we're looking at repeat tendencies. Year over year, bucks will do similar things. But with this National Deer Association study they did, they found zero correlation between age and size of their home range. They found 2 1.5-year-old bucks that had home ranges of nearly 1,000 acres. But at the same time, they had 2 other 1.5-year-old bucks that had home ranges of less than 100 acres. So there's no correlation between age and size of their home range. Many of their 4 or 5 middle-aged bucks were sitting in that 300 to 400 acre home range. Now, there was highs and lows within that range as well. They were down to 150 acres, up to 600 acres. It fluctuates there, but a lot of them sit in that middle range. And it's not a guarantee that the older the buck, the smaller the home range. That's not always accurate. But at the same time, it can be, right? So I had a buck this year that I ended up missing my opportunity on. I screwed it up. But his home range was very large as a 4-year-old last year. It was much larger last year than it was this year. He was far more prevalent as a 4-year-old than a 5-year-old. Now, I don't know whether to credit that to age and weariness or a shrinking home range. I'm not sure. But if you think about this, say this is my property edge right here. I have all of this, but this is my line. In his 4-year-old season, he was utilizing all of this, right? He was going all the way to right here. He would go to right here. That's the farthest I ever saw him on the property, and that was it. Now, this year, he was not nearly as far on the property. Not nearly as far. So, this year maybe, he was probably only that far onto the property. So when we're thinking about a shrinking home range, yes, age isn't always correlated with that, but they can shrink year to year. We need to figure out where his home range direction leans towards. Now, it might go that way, but I know that that's as far as I ever saw him last year, so I'm probably guessing he's not going that way that far. Or not that much, as that's his edge. It's as far as he'll go to that east direction. Now this year, what I found is it's shrinking this way. It's shrinking back this way to the west. So, how did I get on him and actually get a shot opportunity? Well, I figured out that, okay, he's only using this area on my property, so this is where I need to be at to attack him. If I was hunting over here, based on information from last year, that's irrelevant. He's not spending time over here. He's changed. Things are always changing. Home ranges are changing. These deer don't consistently do the same thing over and over and over and over again. These are wild animals. They're always changing and adapting to their surroundings. So we need to always be changing and adapting to what they're doing. So always changing, pay attention to how you can hunt these deer based on their home range, the history of it, what you found year to year, how that's changed, and attack that scenario. So now number 6, we talked about it a little bit already, but age didn't correlate with the size of the home range. Now, that's what we've always heard is the older the buck, the smaller the core range. Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. The National Deer Association, their study showed no correlation. So I'm going to bank on that versus some hearsay I hear throughout the industry. So these are a few bullet points that I felt are really important when it comes to analyzing buck home ranges and trying to figure out how the deer on your property utilize it and how you can take advantage of maybe a certain percentage of their home range that is your property. Pay attention to these things, apply them to your situation. You'll be far more successful next fall. Guys, it's Gunnar. Look, if you like this video, if it helped you at all, like, share, subscribe. It helps me a ton. We'll spread the message. Let's blow this thing up. Also, check me out on Instagram, Gunnar_Hanson, GUNNAR_HANSON. Remember, results are the only thing that matters. Let's get them.